Hi, so it's time for Grandma Reads a Story, and we now move to Wednesdays at 3:30. So but today I'm going to be doing this solo, although this program really is a joint program with the Foster Grandparents Program of Oakland County, sponsored by Catholic Charities of Southeastern Michigan. So this first story we're going to do today it's called Grandma's Gift. It's by Eric Velasquez. So you see some, it's like the poinsettia there, and it's Grandma's Gift. So what do you think Grandma's gift is? It's like there's something that's wrapped up in there. It looks like a grandma and a child. And I don't think it's for the dog. So let's read the story. Oh, it's wrapped up in, maybe it's Christmas. So look, it takes place in the city. Looks like. Feliz Navidad, Eric, my teacher, walked me to the classroom door where my grandmother was waiting to take me back to her apartment for my winter break. I used to spend all my school vacations with her so she could take care of me while my parents worked. Before we left, my teacher handed Grandma a note about our holiday project. The Metropolitan Museum of Art had just bought a famous painting, and I had to go see it and write a report. So that'd be kind of an interesting assignment to do, to see something, see some famous painting. Metropolitan Museum of Art. Cool. So here they are. On our way home, Grandma asked me to translate the note because she couldn't read English. I translate a lot of things for Grandma. Sometimes I feel like I was going to school for two. All the note said was Metropolitan Museum of Art, 82nd Street and 5th Avenue, 2nd floor, new exhibit. So where do you think it's taking place? What city? Do you guess? But for now, I had 10 whole days of freedom, and Christmas time in El Barrio was always like magic. Everyone was out in the streets shopping for food and gifts, and Grandma was ready to join them. So we dropped off my suitcase and headed straight to La Macareta, the market, one of my favorite places. This special group of shops and stalls sat under the elevated train tracks, and all the stalls rumbled and shook whenever a train passed overhead. Train goes overhead, over the market. Is that another clue? What city do you think it is? Can you guess? And look, the Casa Latina. So it's all in Spanish. All this La Marqueta. So it's all in Spanish. Is this in what country? Is this in the United States, do you think? Grandma could find everything she needed there year round. Fruits, vegetables, fish, meat, clothing, and even our favorite records. But that day, Grandma was shopping only for the ingredients for pasteles, the traditional Christmas dish for Puerto Ricans. Oh, so they're Puerto Rican. She promised that if I helped her make the pasteles this year, she would take me to the museum. Well, he's got to go to the museum, so I guess he's got to be in, right? These signs are in English, though. Look at the prices: 59 cents, $1.80. This is a while ago. first stop was the produce stand to buy the root vegetables. Estoy buscando calabaza, yutia, letonas, verdes, guineas, verdes y papas, Grandma said to the first vendor. I'm looking for pumpkins, taro root, green plantains, green bananas, and potatoes. Pues aquí tenemos las mejores. Well, here are the best. All the vendors knew that Grandma would buy only the best ingredients for her famous pastelles. When they agreed on the price, Grandma said, Gracias, a Feliz Navidad. Thank you. Merry Christmas. Feliz Navidad. Look at all those fresh fruits. Our next stop was the butcher stand. ¿Qué todas y gasta, Dory Common? Alberto asked. Which piece do you like, Miss Carmen? Si ve bueno, dama 4 libras, Grandma said. That one is good. Give me 5 pounds. After that, our last stop was Doña Juanita's bodega for parchment wrapping paper, banana leaves, string, and Alvario's latest gossip. So, do you use wrapping paper, parchment at your house, or banana leaves? You would if you were making Puerto Rican food. Obviously, they speak Spanish. The worst part of the trip was carrying the heavy shopping bags up 5 flights of stairs to Grandma's apartment. As soon as she took off her coat, Grandma headed straight to the kitchen and went right to work, peeling and grating the root vegetables by hand, never with a blender. If you want it to taste traditional, you must make it traditionally, she always said. When I asked her where she learned to grate so fast, she only answered, You should have seen my mother grate. When she worked, Grandma asked me to choose some records to set the mood. Siempre me gustó tu selección. I always like your selection. Not good at Spanish, Espanol. As Grandma put the meat on to simmer, she told me stories about her life in Suarca, Puerto Rico, but she really had to concentrate when it came to wrapping the pastelles, the hardest part of the recipe. Why would wrapping them be hard? Remember what they were wrapping them in? So here's the stuff they're putting together. First, Grandma carefully laid out a sheet of parchment paper with a piece of banana leaf on top. Did you know you can have banana leaves? Then she poured a little annatto oil on the leaf and added la masa, the dough, and la carne, the meat, with a valley scooped out in the middle for la salsa, the sauce. Ooh, sounds fun. For the finishing touch, she folded everything together to form a perfect rectangle and tied each one with string so it looked like an old-fashioned parcel. Wow. Do you know wrap up food like that? Is that fun? While the pastelles were boiling for an hour. Boil for an hour in parchment paper, banana leaf. Estos pastelles van a ser los mejores porque están hechos especialmente para ti. Yeah, not good at Spanish. These pastelles are going to be the best ever because I am making them just for you. But I knew that I'd have to share them with the rest of the family and friends who came to visit. She also always handed me them out to her favorite vendors as she shopped for all her gifts. She even gave them to the vendors, people in the shops. She did that. interesting idea. Did you hand out something to Kroger's? The Tuesday morning before Christmas, Grandma woke up and announced that we were going to the museum so I could write my report before all the toys I would get for the holiday distracted me. Grandma's pretty smart. Grandma never really traveled beyond the 20 blocks that made up El Barrio, where she knew everyone and everyone knew her. I could tell she was nervous, but I couldn't help being excited. Whoa, look at that place. Look at that huge place. The museum was a short ride down Fifth Avenue, but the neighborhood was completely different. When we got off the bus right in front of the museum, we didn't see anyone from Puerto Rico on the streets and no one speaking Spanish. They're in New York. Southwest. As we walked up the steps and through the doors to the admission booth, I saw Grandma searching the crowd for a familiar face. Then she asked me to read what it said above the booth. I explained that it said to pay what you wish. Pay what you wish? This made Grandma nervous and unsure what to do. She fumbled through her purse and handed the clerk some money with shaky hands. She was shaking? Why would she do that? Why would she shake? Once inside, we went up the large flight of stairs to the gallery on the second floor, as my teacher had directed in her note. All the paintings there were beautiful. Kikusi, Ahi, what does it say here? Grandma would frequently ask me to translate the captions written next to each painting. Suddenly, Grandma turned and said, Oye, Juan de Parejo, we haces we? Hey, Juan de Parejo, what are you doing there? Grandma finally recognized someone from El Barrio, but she was talking to a painting. And it was the most magnificent of all of them. Quickly ran up and read the caption next to it. Grandma, it says Juan de Pareja was a slave and an assistant to the great painter Diego Velasquez. He later set de Pareja free, and de Pareja became a great artist himself. Wow. Both stood there, just staring at the amazing painting. The gentleman seemed to be looking back at us. He seemed so real, much like someone we might see walking around El Barrio. I couldn't believe that this was a painting in a museum. That evening, my parents brought arroz con canales and lechon, rice with pigeon peas, and roast pork to have with Grandma's delicious costales for a Christmas Eve dinner. While we ate, Grandma and I told them all about our museum adventure. Grandma explained that she had learned about Juan de Pareja when she was growing up in Puerto Rico. We all told stories and listened to music until midnight, when Grandma brought out a gift for me. Wow, look at all that food. Looks good. Ripped off the wrapping paper to find my very own sketchbook and my first set of colored pencils. As we listened to Equinato Puerto Rico Tapdo, my favorite Christmas carol, I took out my pencils and began to draw my first self-portrait. And here's the author's note. Diego Velasquez's portrait of Juan de Pareja had a profound and lasting effect on me. I grew up in a time when there were very few images of people of African descent in children's books. All my heroes, sadly, did not look like me. The portrait of Juan de Pareja showed me for the first time that my people were part of history and not just a casualty of it. He stands so nobly in front of the viewer as though he wants to tell you his story. The fact that Juan de Pareja was also an accomplished painter himself, inspired me to dream of such possibilities for myself. I believe that I'm an artist today because of the painting. Yes, it was that inspiring. So, hope you enjoyed that story. And so, this is by Eric Velasquez. And so, so I guess Diego Velasquez's portrait of Juan de Pardo is what was in the museum. So Diego Velasquez is the same last name. It's Eric Velasquez. Interesting. So yeah, so that's kind of a fun story about what Christmas would might be like, what kinds of things you would eat if you went to Puerto Rico. You would wrap up they were making what were they making with grandma? Do you remember what that was called? It was a Spanish word. So they had to get all the ingredients first. What were they called? Sort of like pastales. So, and then they used banana leaf, and they used they tied it up in string with parchment paper. Kind of interesting dinner. So the next story we're going to read is called A Pocket Full of Kisses by Audrey Penn. So there's a mama raccoon. It's like two babies. Okay, here they are up a tree. See raccoons up a tree before? Chester Raccoon sat in the hollow of the tree stump and pouted. Please, can we give him back? He asked his mother. I'll be really good if we can give him back. What are always talking about? Mrs. Raccoon smiled tenderly. You're already really good, Chester, but I'm afraid no matter how good you are, we can't give him back. Besides, I thought you liked having a little brother. Oh, it's his brother. I did like it at first, admitted Chester. But now he plays with my toys and swings on my swings and reads my books. Then he pulls my tail and talks to my friends and follows me everywhere I go. That would not be fun. Having your little brother follow you everywhere you go and do all those things. Mrs. Raccoon lifted Chester onto her lap, smoothed out his worried, furry forehead. That's what little brothers do, she explained in a very motherly tone. It's no different than sharing the woods, or sharing the stream, or sharing the food we find. Mommy wants to be just like you. And that's what little brothers want to be, just like your big brothers, right? Mrs. Raccoon placed Chester on the ground and smiled at him with the soft, loving eyes he knew so well. I think someone needs a kissing hand, she said in a voice that was warm and inviting. She took Chester's hand in her own, spread open his tiny fingers into a fan. Leaning over, she kissed him right in the middle of his palm. Chester felt the warmth of that kiss rush from his hands, up his arm, and into his heart, and hand to his cheek so he could hear his mother's. And when he pressed his hand to his cheek, he could hear his mother's words in his head. Mommy loves you, they said. Mommy loves you. Chester grinned so wide the tips of his silky black mask wrinkled upward. Even his cheeks flushed to a primrose pink. He was the happiest raccoon in the forest. blink of a moment, all the joy went out of the little raccoon. His pink cheeks paled, and a stream of tiny hot tears fell like spring rain down his sad little face. Even his silky black mask drooped as he watched his mother reach down, take Ronnie's hand in her own, open his tiny fist into a fan, and kiss his brother right in the middle of his palm. That was my kissing hand, Chester gasped in the saddest voice his mother had ever heard. Why did you give Ronnie my kissing hand? Don't you love me anymore? Oh, Chester, cried Mrs. Raccoon, of course I love you. Then how come you gave the baby my kissing hand? Asked Chester. Mrs. Raccoon gathered Chester up in her arms and gave him a great big comforting hug. I would never give Ronnie your kissing hand, she assured him gently. It was his kissing hand. Now you each have one of your own. Is this going to work? We'll see. Chester wiped away his tears and settled in his mother's lap. If you give both of us kissing hands, won't you run out? Mrs. Raccoon laughed. Would you like to hear a story? She asked Chester. About kisses? About stars, said Mrs. Raccoon. How is she going to explain that? Not running out. Using stars. Every night, just before the sun goes down, it reaches out with its rays and touches every star in the universe. One by one, the stars light up, shine down upon us. Even on nights we can't see the stars, they're up there, sparkling away. No matter how many stars fill the sky, the sun will never run out of light, and its rays will never stop reaching out to them. That's the way it is with kissing hands. Whenever somebody loves you, their kisses are like the sun's rays, always there and always shining. No matter how many kissing hands I give you and Ronnie, I will never, ever run out. Never, ever run out. But you are right about one thing, Mrs. Raccoon told Chester. Ronnie's big brother widened his eyes and looked surprised. What's that? He asked his mother. You are the big brother. That deserves something extra special. Think so? Being the big brother? Does that deserve something extra special? I guess again. Mrs. Raccoon put Ronnie on a swing, then took Chester's right hand in hers and spread his tiny fingers into a fan. Leaning over, she kissed him right in the middle of his palm. That kiss is for your pocket, she told him. Take good care of it. Keep it as a spare. You never know when a big brother might need a little extra care. So he's got another one. Put it in his pocket. Chester hugged his mother and romped away. I love you too, he seemed to say. there they are. Ronnie, baby Ronnie, brother Chester, and Mama. So I hope you enjoyed that story. So one's about raccoons, one's about family, and what's the same? What do you think is the same about them? Families, right? One's about a grandma, one's about a mom, and brother and baby brother, and it's all about what? Comfort, making child or children feel happy and feel good. What else do you think it's about? What do you think is the same? What do you think is different? Did you like these stories? So, leave. If you get a chance, add a comment on Facebook. I'd really appreciate hearing what you liked or about these stories, and what did you think was the same about these stories, and what did you think was different? What was your favorite part? So again, this is Bonnie Baldiff from the Conic Public Library, and we will be turning next week on Wednesday at 3:30. And this is Grandma Reads a Story. Hope you have a happy and healthy day.